I wasn't supposed to see that text message. It lit up on Victoria's phone when she stepped away from the conference table to take a call. The screen flashed briefly under the fluorescent lights of our downtown office. I hadn't meant to look. Honestly, I was just reaching for the water pitcher, but there it was, clear as day. Let him close this last deal, then we'll restructure his position. Sent by Craig Morrison, our CEO. My name's Richard Patterson. I'm 50 years old, and I've been working in cybersecurity for over 20 years. That message was about me. Those words hit me hard. I blinked, but they didn't disappear. My hand froze mid-reach. The water pitcher stayed where it was. Across the table, the clients from Apex Defense were laughing with their procurement team, completely unaware. We'd spent the last 14 months bringing them to the table for this deal, one of the biggest defense contracts in our company's history. A comprehensive cybersecurity infrastructure package valued at $68.2 million, and I was the architect behind every single component. I straightened in my chair just as Victoria walked back in. She flashed me that practiced MBA smile, the one they teach you at Wharton. But there was something different this time. A flicker in her eyes when she looked at me. She knew I'd seen it. I smiled back, slow and steady. Game on, I thought. The meeting continued like nothing had happened. Victoria talked about cross-functional synergies and paradigm shifts. The clients nodded, and I responded in all the right places. But inside, something had shifted. The room looked the same, but I was seeing it differently now. I studied Victoria more closely. She sat straighter than usual, checking her phone every few minutes. Her laugh came at weird moments. The polished act was still there, but barely. The clients, though, they were all praise for me. "Rich, your work on this has been outstanding," said General Peterson, their lead procurement officer. "Frankly, if you were running the whole operation, we'd have signed this months ago." Before I could respond, Victoria jumped in with some comment about teamwork, but I caught the way her jaw tightened when Peterson said those words. That's when it hit me. They weren't just planning to restructure my position. They were waiting for me to hand them the signed contract first. $68.2 million. Then goodbye, Rich. Suddenly everything made sense. The subtle comments about bringing in fresh perspectives. The way younger employees were getting promoted over me despite having half my experience. The hints about digital natives being better equipped for the future. I was 50 years old in a company that worshipped at the altar of youth. And I'd just become a liability with an expiration date. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the city lights through my window. The place felt different somehow. Smaller. Temporary. I poured myself a bourbon and started thinking about all the signs I'd missed. 3 years ago, when the Lockwell contract came through, an $18 million deal I'd personally negotiated while my supervisor was on medical leave. I remember the congratulatory email from the executive team. "Great job, Rich. You've exceeded all expectations." But when promotion time came around, it was Victoria who got the bump. Victoria, who'd only been with the company for 8 months. 2 years ago, they told me I was too valuable in my current role to promote during the Phoenix project. HR called it a strategic necessity. Victoria called it temporary. 6 months ago, I'd prepared everything for another shot at advancement, updated my portfolio, gathered peer recommendations, even mentored 2 junior analysts to show leadership. When the announcement came out, my name wasn't even mentioned. Later, I heard through the office grapevine that management thought I was set in my ways and resistant to new methodologies. Apparently, experience had become a dirty word. My phone buzzed. Text from my son Jake at college. "Dad, tuition payments due next week. Everything okay with the transfer? $60,000 a year for his engineering degree. Plus my mortgage, plus the alimony payments to my ex-wife Susan. I couldn't afford to lose this job. Not now. Not at 50, when every other company would look at my resume and see expensive and outdated. I was trapped, and they knew it." Another buzz. This time from Alex, my assistant, the one person in that building who never treated me like a relic. The message was brief. "You didn't get this from me," followed by an attachment. I clicked it. A PDF titled Q4 Restructuring Proposal, Confidential. My name wasn't on any of the leadership tracks. Victoria's name was everywhere. Team lead, strategic director, East Coast expansion. But the real kicker was in the footnotes. Cost reduction through strategic personnel adjustments targeting high salary, low adaptability positions. High salary, low adaptability. That's what 20 years of experience got you these days. I closed the file and sat in the dark. For the first time in months, I let myself feel it. The anger, the frustration, the fear. But underneath all that was something else, something that had been building since that lunch meeting 3 months ago with Elena Reeves. That conversation shouldn't have meant anything, just words over coffee. But sitting here now with a restructuring document that painted me as dead weight, those words meant everything. Elena had seen what my own company refused to see. And now I couldn't stop wondering, what would it look like to build something of my own? Not just wondering, planning. That lunch with Elena had started like any other client meeting. 3 months ago, she'd asked if I had time to meet off the books. Elena Reeves, CEO of Apex Defense, our biggest prospect. It wasn't unusual. Elena preferred talking business outside formal settings. I figured it'd be the usual back and forth about delivery, timelines, or technical specifications. We met at Murphy's Diner on 42nd Street, the kind of place with red vinyl booths and coffee that actually tasted like coffee. Elena arrived 5 minutes early, as always. No suit jacket, just a simple blouse and that direct way of talking that made her one of the few CEOs I actually respected. She didn't waste time on small talk. "Rich," she said, stirring her coffee, "can I ask you something personal?" I looked at her. "Shoot. Why are you still there?" I paused. "Excuse me?" She shrugged. "I've seen your work. Your threat assessments are surgical. Your network architectures are solid. Honestly, I've reviewed some of the proposals your team sent over. Victoria's name is on them, but the thinking? That's not MBA strategy, that's real-world experience." The frustration I'd been swallowing for months stirred in my chest. I kept my voice level. That's how teams work, shared credit. Elena didn't buy it. "You're better than shared credit." She leaned forward. "Look, I'm not trying to mess with your career, but if you ever get tired of being undervalued, if you ever want to build something of your own, we'd back it." The words hung there between us, simple and direct. I gave a small laugh. "That's a generous hypothetical." "I don't do hypotheticals," she said, "especially not when I've already turned down deals from people half as capable as you." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" She sat back. "We declined a proposal from Victoria last year. Looked good on paper, but when we dug deeper, security gaps, unrealistic timelines, vendor conflicts, she hadn't even considered. When we asked for clarification, all we got was corporate speak. My stomach turned. That deal had been painted internally as a near miss. Nobody ever told me Apex walked away because of Victoria's incompetence. Elena continued, gentler now. "I'm saying this because I believe in people who actually know what they're doing. You do. That's rare these days. Those words should have been just coffee talk. But 3 months later, sitting in my apartment with a restructuring document that painted me as dead weight, they meant everything. Elena had seen what my own company refused to see, and I couldn't stop thinking, what would it look like to build something of my own? I didn't talk to anyone about it at first, not my son, not Alex, not even my dad, though I could hear his voice in my head from all those talks when I was younger. "Son, never go down without a fight, but when you fight, fight smart." 2 months ago, I started researching. Late at night, after the office politics couldn't reach me, I dove into business formation laws, tax structures, licensing requirements. I read regulatory documents like they were detective novels, highlighting everything I didn't understand yet. The cybersecurity industry I knew inside out. Zero trust architectures, penetration testing protocols, post-9/11 compliance requirements. That was my world. But business formation, that was new territory. 1 month ago, I walked into a law office downtown and sat across from Patricia Hendricks, a sharp corporate attorney who'd once worked in Defense Corps' own legal department. She'd left 3 years ago, fed up with the executive team's corner cutting. When I told her what I wanted, she didn't even blink. "You want this airtight?" she said, tapping her pen against her notepad. "No loopholes, no connections back to your current employer?" I nodded. "Clean as a whistle." She smiled. "We can do that." We spent 2 hours laying out the formation strategy. Patricia filed the LLC under a discrete name, Sentinel Security Solutions. Clean, professional, Impossible to trace back to me unless someone was really digging. Next came the business account. I opened it quietly at a local credit union under the new entity. No flashy branding, no office lease, just an account number and a password only I knew. It wasn't a real business yet, but it was a container. And soon, it'd hold something substantial. I wasn't reckless about it. I didn't start copying files or whispering plans in the hallway. If I was going to do this, it'd be completely legal and beyond suspicion. But I hadn't counted on Alex. He found me late one evening in the server room, supposedly doing routine maintenance, but actually reviewing export logs like they contained the secrets of the universe. "You're not really checking backup protocols for fun," he said, arms crossed in the doorway. I turned, startled. "Just doing some cleanup." He raised an eyebrow. "That's the worst lie you've ever told me." I didn't answer, just smiled and closed the window. He stepped closer. "Whatever you're planning, count me in, unless you tell me not to." There was something in his expression, steady, loyal, ready for whatever came next. I pulled a small USB drive from my jacket and held it out. "No details, no questions," I said. "Just the client files, my original work. Nothing proprietary, nothing signed." He took it without hesitation. "Give me 2 hours." And he delivered. That night, while most of the office was scrolling through social media, Alex quietly copied everything I'd authored in the last 2 years. Threat assessments, security protocols, implementation strategies, all original work, all mine. We didn't talk much while he worked. When he finished, he handed me the drive and said, "It's on a clean partition. No metadata. You're golden." I nodded. "Thanks." He paused at the door. "Whatever you're building, it's already stronger than what they think they own." When he left, I sat alone in the dark server room, the USB cold in my palm. This wasn't revenge. This was preparation. This was the insurance policy I never thought I'd need. Until now. There's a quiet kind of satisfaction that doesn't need applause. It lives in knowing you've built something others thought you couldn't. That's exactly what I felt scrolling through the final terms of the Apex defense contract at 7:30 that Tuesday evening. The conference room was empty except for me and my laptop screen. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, but not me, not when we were this close. The total contract value, $68.2 million spread over an 8-year implementation of our cybersecurity suite. I'd refined every clause, pricing, contingencies, data security protocols, delivery benchmarks. Every footnote had my fingerprints on it. This deal didn't come from a team, it came from me. At 7:45, my inbox pinged. "Elena Reeves, final review complete. Looks solid on our end. Ready when you are." Ready when you are. Those words hit different tonight. I heard footsteps in the hallway before Victoria appeared in the doorway. Hair perfect, smile practiced, but something tighter around the edges. "There's our closer," she said, walking over like she owned the place. "Are we ready to make history?" I looked up, neutral. Elena just confirmed. "They're ready to sign." Great. She moved behind me, pretending to review the contract on my screen. "You've done incredible work, Rich. Really incredible." There it was again, that tone. Too smooth, too careful. A week ago, I might have missed it, but not anymore. Not after seeing that text message. She patted my shoulder and headed for the door. "Let's wrap this up tomorrow morning. Big day ahead." The door clicked shut. I stared at the send button on my screen, cursor hovering. That inner voice, the one I'd been ignoring for months, whispered, "Wait." A few minutes later, Alex peeked into the conference room. "Hey," he said quietly, slipping inside and closing the door. "You didn't hit send yet, right?" "No." "Why?" He glanced through the glass walls, then back at me. "Heard something from HR. They're planning announcements next week. Restructuring." I frowned. "That's normal for Q4. "Rich," he said, firmer now. "I heard your name specifically." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face steady. "You sure?" "Sure enough. They said to wait until next week to make anything official." I understood. If I sent the contract tonight, they'd have their crown jewel and no reason to keep me around. I closed the document and shut down my laptop. "Thanks, Alex." He nodded and slipped out. I sat there in the half-light, arms crossed, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not fear, control. Because for the first time, I didn't need their approval. I had leverage. I had the client. and they had no idea what I was about to do with both. The next morning started normal until it didn't. At 8:15, I walked into the office carrying the same coffee mug I'd used for 3 years. Security nodded like always. Same elevator, same mechanical chime. But when I got to my desk, my computer wouldn't log in. Access denied blinked red on the screen. Before I could call IT, an email hit my phone. HR, subject line, employment status update. Your employment with Defense Corps Solutions is terminated effective immediately. Your credentials have been deactivated. Do not attempt to access company systems. 5 cold sentences. No explanation. No thank you. 20 years reduced to a form letter. My badge stopped working. My email was gone. My calendar wiped clean. I sat there for a full minute, listening to the office buzz around me like nothing had happened. Then my phone buzzed. Alex. They cut you off. I'm done here too. Won't smile while they erase you. Another message. Also, check your personal email. I did. There it was. The Apex Defense contract, fully executed, not with Defense Corps' signature block. With Sentinel Security Solutions, my signature, my company. I'd sent it at 6 a.m. from my personal laptop using the files Alex had saved for me. The contract I'd spent 14 months building was now mine. Smart move, preparing that backup version weeks ago when I first sensed trouble. Elena had been expecting it. We'd discussed the transition during a quiet call yesterday evening. By 9 a.m. the news broke. My phone started buzzing with calls I didn't recognize. Industry publications, former clients, headhunters who'd ignored me for years. Defense contractor Apex Awards, 68.2 M. Dollar cybersecurity contract to Sentinel Security Solutions. By 10 a.m. my phone was ringing nonstop. Former clients who'd heard the news. 3 companies wanted to move their accounts. 2 offered partnership deals. I let most of them go to voicemail, but I answered when Patricia Hendricks called. Rich, congratulations, she said. How's it feel to be the CEO of a $68 million company? Surreal, I admitted. But good. Elena's team already wired the first installment. Your account's active. I checked my banking app. There it was, $8.5 million. First year's payment, sitting in Sentinel Security's account. By noon, Victoria was probably explaining to the board how she'd lost the biggest deal in company history to a guy they'd just fired. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a bourbon, reading the industry coverage. Every article mentioned Defense Corps' failure to retain key talent and Apex's confidence in experienced leadership. My phone rang. Dad's number. Saw the news, son. Proud of you. Thanks, Dad. Remember what I always told you? I smiled. Never go down without a fight. That's right. But you did something better. You fought smart. He was right. I hadn't just survived. I'd won. And this was only the beginning. The next few weeks felt like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Each day brought another call, another opportunity, another crack in Defense Corps' foundation. Elena called on Thursday with an offer that made my head spin. Rich, we want you on Apex's board of directors, advisory role but with real influence. What do you think? I was sitting in a temporary office space I'd rented downtown. Nothing fancy, just a desk and a phone, but it was mine. I think I'd be honored. Good. We're also interested in discussing exclusive partnerships. Long-term stuff. Your expertise, our resources. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and tried to process it all. 3 days ago, I was a fired employee. Now I was a board member at a Fortune 500 defense contractor. My phone buzzed. Text from Jake. Dad, saw the article in Defense Weekly. Holy crap, you're famous. Can't wait to tell everyone at school my dad's a CEO. I smiled. Kid had no idea how much that meant to me. The real satisfaction came Friday afternoon. Alex called from his new job. He'd landed at a cybersecurity startup within 48 hours of quitting Defense Corps. You gotta hear this, he said, barely containing his laughter. Victoria called an all-hands meeting this morning. Damage control. Yeah? She tried to spin it like you going rogue was actually part of their strategy. Said they'd been planning to leverage external partnerships all along. I shook my head. Course she did. Gets better. General Peterson from Apex showed up. Just walked into their lobby, asked to speak with Victoria directly. No kidding. Told her they were terminating the preliminary discussions they'd had for future contracts. Said Apex only works with companies that value their key personnel. That one hit different. Elena hadn't just backed me. She'd made sure Defense Corps felt the consequences. How'd Victoria take it? Like someone had punched her in the gut. Word is the board's asking serious questions about her leadership. I didn't feel bad about that. Not even a little. 2 weeks later, the industry newsletter that tracked contract wins and losses published their quarterly review. Defense Corps had lost 4 major clients in addition to Apex. Companies I'd worked with for years, relationships I'd built through late nights and weekend calls. The article was brutal. Defense Corps' strategic missteps, how poor personnel management cost the firm $200 million in contracts. $200 million. That was Victoria's price for treating experience like a liability. My phone rang that evening. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Craig Morrison, Defense Corps' CEO. Rich, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I almost laughed. Did we? Look, I'll be straight with you. We made some mistakes in how we handled your transition. I'd like to discuss bringing you back. VP level, significant raise, equity package. Interesting timing, I said. We value what you built here. Always have. Funny way of showing it. There was a pause. What would it take? I looked around my small office, at the contracts piling up on my desk, at the business plan I'd been sketching for Sentinel's expansion. Craig, I appreciate the call, really, but I'm not looking backward anymore. Rich, be reasonable. You can't run a major cybersecurity firm from a rented office. Watch me. I hung up before he could respond. The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, a call from the CEO would have made my week. Now it was just noise. A month later, Sentinel Security Solutions officially opened its headquarters in a 15,000 square foot facility in downtown Austin. Elena had connected me with a Texas-based investment group that specialized in defense contractors. They'd provided $25 million in Series A funding. Alex joined as my VP of Operations. Patricia Hendricks came aboard as General Counsel. We hired 12 specialists, most of them experienced professionals who'd been pushed out of other companies for being too expensive or not adaptable enough. Turned out there was a whole market of undervalued talent out there, people who knew the difference between penetration testing and vulnerability assessment, who understood that real cybersecurity wasn't about flashy presentations, it was about understanding how bad actors actually operate. On opening day, I got a call from my dad. Saw the pictures in the paper, son. Real proud of you. Thanks, Dad. Your mother would have been proud too. My throat tightened a bit. Mom had passed 5 years ago, right around the time I was getting passed over for that first promotion. She'd always believed I was capable of more than Defense Corps would give me credit for. Yeah, she would have. You remember what she used to say about closed doors? I smiled. When one door closes, build your own. That's right. You didn't just build a door, son. You built the whole damn house. 3 months later, Sentinel won its second major contract, a $45 million deal with the Department of Homeland Security. The announcement made the front page of Federal Defense Review. The article mentioned that Sentinel's CEO, Richard Patterson, had previously worked at Defense Corps Solutions, but spent most of its space discussing our innovative approach to zero-trust architecture and threat assessment. Defense Corps got one line. Industry sources note several major defense contractors have shifted to smaller, more specialized firms following recent personnel changes at established players. Personnel changes. That's what they were calling it. That evening, I sat in my new office, corner window, view of the Austin skyline, reading contract proposals from clients I'd never even heard of 6 months ago. My assistant knocked and poked her head in. Mr. Patterson, your son's on line 1. I picked up. Hey, Jake. Dad, I've been thinking about changing my major. Oh, yeah? To what? Cybersecurity. Figure if I'm going to follow in the old man's footsteps, might as well learn from the best. I leaned back in my chair, grinning. You sure about that? It's a tough field. Are you kidding? Look what you built from nothing. If you can do that at 50, imagine what someone could do starting at 20. After we hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably in another conference room explaining to another board why her numbers were down. Craig Morrison was likely fielding calls from investors asking about the talent drain. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd spent 20 years building other people's dreams. Now I was building my own. And this was just the beginning. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just being too good to ignore.